and a very warm welcome to you all. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Marc Morley, and I'm delighted to be hosting another showcase webinar for the Good Governance Academy. It's wonderful to see so many of our regular guests, and I also like to extend a special welcome to those who are joining us for the first time. For those who are new to the Good Governance Academy, we're a non-profit established by Professor Mervyn King back in 2019. We work with organisations worldwide to educate and empower leaders from all sectors, public and private, large and small. Our mission is to raise awareness of critical issues in governance through webinars, colloquia, and course endorsement. If you'd like to see our upcoming events, we'll share a link to our events page in the chat. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join our mailing list to stay connected. In addition to the colloquia and the topical webinars, we run these showcase events to highlight courses that GGA has endorsed, programs that deliver cutting-edge, relevant content for today's governance challenges. And today we're thrilled to showcase the Bonar Institute's Digital Responsible AI program, a timely and critical initiative designed for boards and C-suites, navigating the ever-evolving world of artificial intelligence. Responsible AI isn't just a technical issue, it's a governance imperative. And this program equips leaders with the tools and the frameworks they need to ensure that AI is implemented responsibly, ethically, and sustainably, balancing both innovation and accountability. So I'm delighted to welcome our partners from the Bonar Institute, and I look forward to engaging and thought-provoking session. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to James first, and then John to briefly introduce themselves before we dig into today's showcase.
Thank you very much, Mark, and it is a great pleasure for John and I both to be here today and to be speaking, at one of your events. You're an organization for which we have a great deal of respect and affinity with, so it's wonderful. So my name is James Bonar, and I'm CEO and founder of the Bonar Institute for Purposeful Leadership. I started my professional life as an academic. And so I was an academic for a number of years, mostly as teaching, but a little bit on the administrative side. And after approximately 7 years as an academic, I then became an administrator and executive in the non-for-profit sector. And from the non-for-profit sector, I moved to government. And then after that, I finally ended up in business. And in business, I had a career of over 25 years as a senior executive in Canada, French-speaking Europe, the United States, and Mexico. And in 2014, I founded the Bonar Institute for Purposeful Leadership. So we define ourselves as a Bonar Institute as a strategic advisory firm that partners with high-performing companies to optimize board and executive talent through purpose. And our particular emphasis is on AI, especially as it evolves and it's becoming more and more pervasive throughout the world. And we'll be speaking about this more today. That would probably do it for me. John?
Hello, I'm John Barker. I'm Senior VP of AI at the Bonar Institute. I'm also partner and co-founder at the CISO law firm, a law firm devoted to advocating for chief information security officers. I am also a frequent speaker at major cybersecurity conferences. I hope some of you will join those conferences because cybersecurity is relevant to AI. I've had various roles in my career, including being a lawyer or building products and services for lawyers that use old-fashioned artificial intelligence, which had a more deterministic outcome and lower risk than generative AI and agentic AI. And I'm delighted to be here today.
Wonderful. Thank you both. So rather than dive straight into your course, which I'm sure everyone's eager to see, I thought we'd go through some questions on the responsible use of AI and where that all starts, and then we can feed into your course as we go through. So given the rapid evolution of AI, particularly the emergence of agentic AI, how must the core tenets of effective leadership at the board and C-suite level fundamentally shift to navigate this new landscape?
So how is it affecting the C-suite and how the C-suite sees the world? You're quite right when you're talking about how AI today is pervasive, how it is accelerating at warp speed almost, and that we have seen in the past only few years it going from predictive to generative to agentic AI, and that we are seeing today the democratization, I'm trying to say the fact that it's a democratic and that everybody is using it, where that is playing is that AI and access to AI is no longer a competitive advantage. For quite a while, a number of companies would see access to AI, the development of the next generation of AI, as a competitive advantage. And the way it's going now, at the speed at which it's developing, it is no longer the case. Where there is a competitive advantage, however, is at the level of leadership, at the board level, and at senior management level. And specifically, I would say that the more that these senior leaders are AI literate and have an understanding of AI, have understanding of not only the opportunities posed by AI, but some of the risks inherent in AI and the speed at which it is developing. That is what differentiates many of the companies today from success to rather than being just part of the pack. John, do you want to continue?
Yes. Well, I would like to note, so I worked, in old-fashioned machine learning and old-fashioned artificial intelligence. It was deterministic in nature. And so it remained in the IT department, and it really did not require a lot of board oversight. It was low risk. It did not necessarily digitally transform the entire organization. It really was more of an efficiency play. But today, generative AI and multimodal generative AI literally could destroy your business. It could enable your customer to enter your business, replace you. It could cause you to have a cybersecurity event through a data breach. So the risks are much higher. So generative AI is transformative in a way that I think truly no other technology has been. And there are, I'm simultaneously excited about it in my law practice. We use it every day. Of course, we have to use it responsibly. And so for example, drafting a contract or reviewing a contract, I can get I can generate a list of issues to analyze in 60 seconds, whereas in the past that might have taken 2 or 3 days of reading and study. So the potential for complete transformation of your business, and now the ability to build a business with just 2 to 5 people that has multi-billion-dollar valuations. It's hard to get our minds to understand completely what the scope of opportunity is.
I would just like to add, perhaps before we move on, that at the Bonar Institute, we champion purpose and ethical leadership as a guiding principle. So that in this time of AI, we do see that that the importance of ethics, just to ensure, to the very best of our abilities, that some of the AI programs don't go rogue on us. The importance of purpose and ethics in leadership, especially in the time of AI, is also recognized by the National Association of Corporate Directors in the US and the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, also in the US. So they see that in today's world, to keep us moving forward and to keep an alignment between where companies are going and the greater population and society and the other stakeholders, these two elements, purpose and ethics, are key. And they're also key to what we do. That's it for me.
Thanks, Jens. Going on from what John was just saying, that so we're in an era now where AI is not just about efficiency; it's existential for some businesses. And then going back to your point, James, on purposeful leadership and responsible AI, when they converge and to create a demonstrable enterprise value, particularly when considering the broader stakeholder needs, I mean, what do we need to be cognizant of there?
In the context of purposeful leadership and responsible and trustworthy AI, the focus is on multiple stakeholders. And indeed, some of the principles of trustworthy and responsible AI are actually enforceable in law. Sometimes people hear responsible and trustworthy, and they sound like fuzzy concepts that are more on the emotional side, but they are not. So I first would like to note the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act has specific articles about ethics, accountability, trustworthiness, privacy, data security that are absolutely enforceable in law. And violating those provisions can lead to fines up to 7% of your last year's global revenue turnover, or up to 35 million euros, whichever is greater. So this is something boards and the C-suites must pay attention to. So, in the laws and regulations, as well as voluntary frameworks such as ISO 42001 and the NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework, also note the need to consider multiple stakeholders when you're setting up your AI system and your AI governance. And those stakeholders include, obviously, your business, your employees, your customers, your regulators, wherever they are, society in general. What are your, we have to go back to the fundamental purpose of a business. All businesses must be consistent with public policy. So that imposes a duty to consider the public in general for your business. So I'll just leave it there, but multiple stakeholders, that's the key word to remember.
And when we're speaking about multiple stakeholders, one of the stakeholders we often don't pay enough attention to, funny enough, are the internal stakeholders, especially today, where the attraction of AI, the frenzy over AI, has led many organizations to go on a false premise that AI can replace human employees. Now, this is a false premise, and we can speak about that later if you wish. But what that means is that if they do not pay attention, the companies do not pay attention to their human employees sufficiently, that will lead to demotivation. That will lead to situations where, for the sake of self-preservation, some of these employees may even be apt to want to sabotage really the deployment of the AI and so forth. So this is very important. And as John was saying, we're talking about all the other stakeholders and the internal ones. It has to start at the very beginning of when people are talking about creating their AI programs and how they're going to deploy it. They have to start at that moment to start thinking in terms of ethics, and they're starting to have to think about the impact on their stakeholders and their various stakeholders. So they'll also have to identify those stakeholders. That's it for me.
What James brought up 2 points I'd like to elaborate on just a little bit. Number one, there have been, and we've seen it in the news, in the Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, other prominent business publications, that some businesses view AI as being able to replace entire teams. Or an AI agent equals an employee, and the automation story is more complicated. So I'd like to cite one example of a business I think that took a wise approach. Moderna, one of the companies that developed one of the COVID vaccines, merged its information technology department with its human resources department, and they merged the role of the CIO and the chief human resources officer into one role. And that individual manages the digital workforce and the more than 3,000 AI agents and their human employees. And that's going to be the new challenge. The second thing that James talked about is what I call the human firewall. I've presented about this at RSA, and I'm going to lead a panel on this at the Internet Security Congress. And the human firewall issue is you must set up robust AI governance processes. And I won't go deep into detail, but the reason that is important, Writer AI did a survey of 1,600 business executives and knowledge workers. And in that survey, Generation Z employees anonymously admitted 37% of those surveyed anonymously admitted to proactively sabotaging their business's AI because they want to corrupt it because they don't want job loss. And a large percentage of those employees under the pressure of needing to increase productivity and compete with others, we're personally paying for an AI and using it at home to do work, which has security risks. So any rollout of AI, no matter what you do, you're going to have to get the workforce engaged, and you're probably going to have to get your customers engaged. And believe it or not, building a positive relationship with your regulator is going to be beneficial as well, and there are ways to do that.
So what John is saying is the importance of having policies and actually at the board level and senior management level regarding AI and human management. And what that oftentimes means is to be able to determine and identify what roles are properly played and more effectively played by humans, which roles in the same are more effectively played at the AI level, and where there is a hybrid AI-human collaboration that is most effective. So this sort of this AI-human capital alignment challenge is paramount to boards and to the C-suite. And it's really up to them, both the board and the C-suite, to take ownership for this, to focus on this, and this up to the CEO then to ensure operationally that things get done and that they have alignment with all leadership levels within the organization. That leads to a more effective, harmonious, and successful deployment.
So staying on that topic there, I mean, whenever I've spoken to anyone about AI, it all comes down to job losses. You know, how's this going to impact me in the future? Who's going to continue to be employed and who's going to be kicked to one side? How do boards ensure that employees are not scared of AI and not just adapting to AI, but thriving alongside it and collaborating with it?
So that I suppose, John, I'll start and please jump in. It all starts again from the perspective of the ethics of the organization, of the board and of the C-suite. But it also comes down to the point of the board recognizing that AI is not just a technological upgrade, that it is transformational, not only from the point of view, the running of the organization, but from cultural transfunctional. It is transformational. So what that would also imply is that they will then have to say that AI transformation is really change management of the highest order. And what is absolutely key in any form of change management is messaging. So one is to have a very clear idea, goal, purpose for what the organization is doing, why they're bringing in AI, how it is going to play, what are the processes, the timelines, the deliverables, and so on that are going to be involved. But then to your point, is what's in it for me from the employee's perspective. And from that perspective, it is many of them are going to be very, very concerned about job loss. John mentioned the term or the expression job reduction or versus augmentation.
Mm.
So if it is properly done, they will then, I'm speaking about management at the board and mostly at the C-suite level and leadership level, be able to discuss and present to their employees reality as it is, meaning why they're going there, what are the inputs and outputs, what is the potential risks for them. And what they would then likely do is to say that they would support the employees by giving them the necessary training, that they will proactively identify what kind of roles are particularly suited for humans with their skill set. And in an ideal world, what AI would then be doing are more routine tasks. So if it is properly done, that would enable then organizations to have a highly motivated, keen, engaged workforce, because actually what they're going to be doing can be and should be more exciting than what it was in the past. John, what?
There's several ways. So I think this deals with psychological safety of
Yeah.
employees. The reality is we're now in the world of AI, and we're not going back. Whether we like it or not, it's here, and we have to deal with it. Um, Ways that boards and C-suites can address the human firewall issue to keep the workforce engaged. So first of all, we have to remember for AI to be successful in any organization, it has to be trained on data. And increasingly, that data will be the knowledge of the employees. And at one point, you will have AI collecting data from email interactions, voice interactions of employee, the documented decisions of employees, all the written knowledge in the organization, interactions with customers. So if you have a toxic culture, the AI is going to amplify the toxic culture. Your especially if it's an implicit culture that differs. If your implicit culture is toxic, but your mission statement, your vision, your values all sound wonderful, you're going to have problems with that. So boards are going to need to address, proactively set the tone for a security first culture, perhaps an AI first culture, but they're going to have to set the example of an ethical tone. Psychological safety would include making sure that whenever possible, you upskill existing employees to enhance their AI skills and knowledge. Board members and members of the C-suite should proactively, very publicly upgrade their AI skills. They should demonstrate their willingness to have some of their decisions and tasks being automated by AI. They should make sure to collect feedback from employees, suppliers, and even customers about the impact of AI. So I think there are a lot of things that can be done. I can certainly go on, but AI literacy, by the way, is a requirement of the European Union AI Act. And I would encourage everyone to go pull up that act and read that article. I think you'll find it interesting.
Mhm. We'll make sure we post a link to that on your page of our website.
Yes.
So beyond traditional compliance, what proactive safeguards and ethical frameworks are imperative for boards and the C-suite to establish today, to mitigate the unforeseen risks and the unknowns that arise from increasingly sophisticated AI, including the autonomous agents?
Oh, there are many.
Mhm.
So one of my favorites comes from the United States National Institute of Standards and Technology, that is called NIST acronym, the Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework, and accompanying AI playbook. I recommend consulting that. The Asilomar principles, the Organization of Economic Coordination and Development acronym, OECD, they have trustworthy and responsible AI principles, which fed into the NIST AI risk management framework. It was an influence on the European Union AI Act. The United Kingdom, the country of Japan, the nation state of Singapore have all developed voluntary frameworks for businesses to adopt. The European Union has also developed general purpose AI codes of conduct, which are voluntary codes of conduct. OpenAI said it will not sign that. Well, I can't remember which one. It might be Facebook. One of the major AI suppliers has signed onto that code of conduct, and one other said no. And I apologize for not remembering. In addition, different industry sectors, like, for example, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners developed a model bulletin on responsible and trustworthy AI. The International Standards Organization has ISO 42001, and there actually are many, many more. And you can look to codified laws as well. So it could be very, very easy to spend many hours just discussing the frameworks that exist. My recommendation, because the content is overwhelming, find one framework and just study it and become very familiar with those principles. And our digital modular program at the Bonar Institute does pull content from the NIST, AIRMF, OECD, as well as the European Union AI Act, and that can give a nice overview.
So, talking a bit more about your program now, it emphasizes the real, relevant, and meaningful AI use case risk scenarios. So, could you elaborate on how boards and C-suites can effectively identify and prioritize these specific risks, especially
Yes.
those stemming from the potential for agentic AI to make independent decisions?
Yes. So I can share my screen and show a few slides of it. But before I do that, I would like to note that any framework that you look at, and my favorites remain ISO 42001 and the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. And there's a crosswalk developed by NIST that ties principles of the NIST framework to the ISO 42001. Both of those frameworks have focus on governance, setting up AI governance. And you will see reference to the governing authority, because many privately held organizations do not have a board of directors, but they do have a governing authority. And but the beauty of the NIST framework is it was designed to be industry agnostic, and it was designed to be usable by any size organization. And it has a core function called govern, and that is an activity, and I recommend everyone take a look at that. And there are many wonderful YouTube videos about that as well. So there's a lot of guidance. There is another resource I'd like to cite. So I have a master's in regulatory compliance. I'm a compliance nerd, I admit. But chapter 8 of and I don't remember the subchapter right now, but we can put a link to it. There's a subchapter in chapter 8 called Compliance and Ethics Programs, and it sets out 7 principles for boards and C-suites to follow in fulfillment of their fiduciary duties. And they map very nicely to the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. So I hope you can see my screen.
We can, yes.
And so this is the portal where you can access our online programs. And one of the programs is Responsible AI for Boards and C-suites. And we note the background of the program. We note the fact that no one is going to get an absolute competitive advantage merely by adopting AI. We now all have the ability to go access open source or proprietary AI. We all have access to the same technologies. And so we note that at the Bonar Institute, we assert that integrating the principles of purposeful leadership, and when board members and C-suite members and other individuals work on strengthening these attributes of purposeful leaders, 6 attributes, and integrate that purposeful leadership with responsible and trustworthy AI, those are the organizations that are going to have better long-term sustainable value. And the curriculum of our program, it's divided into 4 modules. I personally did develop the program. We update it quarterly, and I will be updating it for agentic AI, by the way. We have a resource library. By the way, that resource library does link to the frameworks, but there's secondary literature that we'll constantly need to update. But the 4 modules, first of all, we have a welcome and introduction. We discuss fiduciary duties relevant to artificial intelligence. And by the way, fiduciary duties go back to the 1600s in the Netherlands. The Dutch East India Company had to develop fiduciary duties in order for business to function. So even if you look at the fiduciary duties of just one legal jurisdiction, they all came from the Netherlands, ultimately. A lot of people don't know. Some do believe they came from the British equivalent of the Dutch East India Company. So we go deep into the duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of good faith. And in the United States, C-suite executives, as well as board members, all share the same fiduciary duties. Then we dive into artificial intelligence risks, artificial intelligence opportunities, and then we go deep into the board imperative of responsible AI and purposeful leadership. And I would just like to note, we go into the very basics. And if there's demand, I can adapt this to any country, the European Union, it's not a problem. But we go over the basics, and then we have a quiz. And then I discuss how compliance and ethics programs provide evidence of fiduciary duty compliance. We talk about VUCA, that is vulnerability, vagueness, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. As the context for decision making, it's not easy. And then in artificial intelligence risks, the main ones are cybersecurity, intellectual property, but the other risks include shadow AI usage, sabotage, etc., the human issues. We also discuss opportunities. So we discussed how boards and CEOs can proactively use AI. By the way, there is the opportunity for reverse mentoring, where you have, people in the IT organization or AI experts who could become a mentor to a C-suite executive or a board member, and you can cross-pollinate ideas, innovation ideas in the organizations. We then focused more on the C-suite and then opportunities for specific functions and departments, including product management, marketing, sales, the legal department, the human resources department. And then in our final module, we have the board imperative of responsible AI and purposeful leadership. In reality, everyone in the organization ideally would work on these skills. And this is where we pull in the various frameworks, and then there's a final exam, multiple choice, and we ask for feedback. So
wonderful. Thanks, John. And actually, one of the things that we loved about this course when we were assessing it is that it's not focused just on the technical people, which so many AI courses are. You concentrate on the opportunities of AI, not just the risks, which is also something a lot of people are doing. Is just kind of doom and gloom in this, brace for impact. But you're exploring the opportunities as well and how they can be explored. So there's a few things, well, many things that we loved about this course, but those are kind of specific ones.
Well, first of all, I and the Bonar Institute are deeply grateful for your evaluation of the course, and your feedback was very helpful. And in the next update cycle, I'm going to focus on emphasizing some items that you recommended that we emphasize. So it was very valuable, and we are grateful for the feedback. We did make a deliberate decision not to go into the technology aspects because there's so much content available for free or fee-based where you can learn the technology. We absolutely do encourage learning as much as you can about the technology, but there is something interesting about generative AI and AI agents, and that is because generative AI can understand spoken and written language. You actually don't necessarily need a lot of technology expertise other than the ability to type, the ability to speak, and how to use your smartphone or your laptop. And certainly there will be other devices we'll be interacting with in the future, and AI will run in the background. What the skill that's going to be needed is understanding the risks and the opportunities of AI. And we encourage everyone get as much technical knowledge as you can. But we at the Bonar Institute don't believe we're the best organization to deliver that.
Thanks, John. I see we've actually got more and more questions popping up in the question box. So I think rather than leave those to the end, maybe it would be nice if we're going to address
Yes.
some of those now. And
Yes.
apologies for those that asked their questions kind of towards the start. But we have a question here. Is it fair to say that there is a democratization of AI when the poor and the underprivileged do not have access to AI and no access to smartphones and the Internet of Things?
Well, this is of great concern to me. So I would like to note the following. So the Organization for Economic Coordination and Development, I encourage if you are concerned about this, get engaged with the United Nations and get engaged with the OECD. And if you live in a country that probably has some governmental organization that is interested in that, there will be nonprofit organizations that will address these issues. I also recommend to people in this meeting, you can also, if you have the means to do so, set up your own foundation to help democratize AI for the underprivileged. If you have knowledge, you can start volunteering and training. You can go to your legislative and regulatory authorities for the education system and make sure that the next generation workforce is getting training. You can encourage volunteer organizations to upskill workers. In the United States, publicly funded libraries do offer access to online training resources. And finally, organizations such as Microsoft they have offered grants to educate people who don't have access as well. I don't think we fully have addressed the issue, but that's what I know so far. This is an issue of huge concern for me. The digital divide, it's not only the people who lack financial means, but what about the elderly? And what about children who might go to a school that has few resources to invest in AI training?
Yeah. Thanks, John. The next question is there a linkage between governance of AI and diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Absolutely. So I would like to note that both the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, OECD principles, all frameworks, and ISO 42001 note the need that your AI governance organization absolutely must consider multiple stakeholders. It needs to be diverse in thought. So diversity of thought can mean many different things according to where you live. Diversity has different definitions in different cultures and countries, but it's absolutely essential. Another area where diversity needs to exist is in the training data that trains the AI model. And if you don't have that diversity in the training data, uh, your your AI is going to reflect whatever is there. The parameters and the inferences that it is learning will reflect bias, and there will be harm. So another area where diversity comes in is after you have deployed your AI system, you must have continuous auditing and monitoring for bias. And this is a legal requirement as well. So that's the best that I can address that at the moment.
Thanks, John. Coming back to you, you mentioned earlier, and this is another question, you mentioned earlier that Moderna had merged their IT and HR
Yes.
functions, and you thought that was a good move. And so the question is, what do you think why was that a good move to you?
Well, first of all, I start on the premise that AI is here and we really have no choice but to accept it and deal with it. And the best thing to do is proactively manage it in an ethical and responsible way. Uh, so what I keep remembering is that the reality is AI agents are going to be colleagues of humans. AI agents are going to be on the team with a team of humans and other AI agents. And ultimately, AI is going to be evaluating the performance of human workers and even managing human workers. AI will be assisting in recruiting human workers. You're selecting employees or making recommendations whether to have an agent. So it is both a technology issue and a human issue. So I foresee a new role, and I don't know what that title is. I present to a lot of chief human resource officers, by the way, to their groups, and we discuss this. You know, what's the future of human resources? You're going to have a digital workforce and a human workforce. And depending on the culture you are in, you might have a chief financial officer who says, you know what? AI and human salaries are on two different places in our accounting system. And it's cheaper to buy software than it is to pay salaries and benefits to a human. I'd like to get rid of the human workforce as soon as possible. Moderna did not take that approach. Moderna took the proactive approach of, you know, let's upskill our existing employees. Let's find a way to make AI and humans work together. We do have a lot of literature. If you go, you can go into Google News. You will find many examples of failed AI rollouts and very discouraged workforces. And then you find examples of extremely successful rollouts. And let's analyze what's different.
Great. Thanks, John. Another question here is, regulators internationally are technology agnostic. Do you believe that this will change with AI?
I'm not completely in agreement that regulators are technology agnostic. I do there, and this gets into a very complex question. But certainly, regulators, well, let's just say governments are going to be using AI in warfare, national defense, and national security. And they're going to have to select a vendor unless they have enough money and tax revenue to build their own AI systems. And that's going to be hard for some countries. So automatically, when a vendor is selected for national security and national defense, you're not technology agnostic anymore. But yes, in a general sense, for For example, the European Union AI Act recognizes there are general purpose AI models that would include Mistral of France, that would include Microsoft Copilot, that would include OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic, Meta, Alphabet. Those are the general purpose AI models that, take hundreds of billions of dollars to build. I also would like to note that China's DeepSeek has actually been banned in several countries. Italy, for example, has banned its use, not by private citizens, but it has been banned in government offices. The US government has banned its use as well. So in one sense, there's technology agnosticism, and another there's not. And tax policy will also influence this. I think it's a very complex issue.
As another question here, as organizations transform into AI lean, do boards have to plan for significant portions of employees that will not be able to become productive in a new labor world?
I do believe so, because first, I would like to note that AI is, well, today's AI is a next generation automation technique. And whenever you automate a function or a task, you're going to change a person's job. So software coders, for example. I can say for sure in the United States, that entry-level programmers, there's just less demand for them now because of vibe coding and the ability to type in text and generate software code. So software coders now need to play more of a role of looking for mistakes in the AI generated code. That is a complete transformation of the software coder's job. Some software engineers say, you know what? I don't enjoy working with AI. I enjoy the intellectual challenge and the creativity of organically generating a software code. And now my job is to let the AI generate the code, and I'm debugging the code, and that's not what I signed up for. And those are the individuals that might leave your business and use an AI to create a business that competes with yours. So it's just an interesting issue. So I do believe there will be people who will not be able to adapt in the organization, and they will leave. So I would recommend to boards, have a chief human resources officer on your board, or someone with human capital management expertise, and find a way to understand what the needs are of employees as they transition into this AI first world.
Okay, thanks, John. Next question, and we have a few left here.
Yes.
How are boards managing the risk of AI? What are they doing differently? And do boards have the required AI skill for their oversight role? And this probably leads nicely into your
Yes. Well, a wide variety of challenges. So I'm going to say something that I think is surprising to people, but the majority of businesses in the world are privately held and they don't have a board. They have maybe a CEO or a president, and we're talking businesses that bring in billions of dollars in revenue. Now, those businesses are likely going to have a board. So that's one issue. But now let's focus specifically on boards. So if you're a publicly held company, boards of publicly held companies have basically 8 functions. They have to maximize profit. They have to set the long-term vision and strategy for the organization. They hire and fire and evaluate the performance of the CEO. They establish committees. They have the duty of oversight to make sure the organization is managing its legal and regulatory affairs, complying with the law. They have to oversee compliance in general. Well, guess what? AI touches every single board function. So I personally know of boards that are doing a very poor job of managing AI. My law firm encounters whistleblowers who have brought concerns to the board, and they've experienced retaliation for exposing weaknesses in the organization. We have other boards that are absolutely striving to do an excellent job. So there are organizations such as the Good Governance Academy, and board members who come to the Good Governance Academy are trying to increase their skills in governance and be a better board member. We have the organization in the United States, National Association of Corporate Directors. There is an advisory board center in Australia that trains people how to be good advisory board members. So there's a lot of hope, and that's the purpose at the Bonar Institute. The purpose of our program is to upskill board members and C-suites in responsible and trustworthy AI. It's very important to raise awareness of this issue, how much the board can affect the outcomes. And I think, board members I know of that are proactively saying, you know what, we need to learn AI and we need to recruit at least one board member who is an AI expert.
If we can, following on from that, but going back into your program, you aim to help clients optimize AI-enabled innovation while
Yes.
gaining a favorable legal, ethical, and regulatory posture. So could you provide a concrete example of how a board might apply the principles of responsible AI to manage the ethical implications of deploying new AI agents?
Yes. So under the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines Guidance on Compliance and Ethics Program, there should be a board that every year sends out a policy and, saying, this is our mission, this is our vision, these are our values, and these are our ethics. And by the way, here's ethics training, here's AI training. We board members are going to set the ethical tone and the tone for security and the tone for responsible and trustworthy AI. We're going to take the training, we're sponsoring it, we're going to push it throughout the organization. That would be one way to do it. Another area is, written policies and procedures, training on those policies and procedures. When there is a violation of a policy and a procedure, there is discipline, employee discipline up to and including termination. This is all in effective compliance and ethics programs. In addition, taking a proactive stance of getting a competent AI system for employees to use so they won't be motivated to use shadow AI. Making sure that if you are going to have a reduction in force, you communicate about it proactively. You do your best to try to upskill existing employees. There are many, many ways that boards and corporate officers can manage this and set an example.
Do you think there's a danger, especially with companies that are listed, where you've got shareholders controlling a lot of the decisions, that because AI is coming, it's gonna be so ingrained in businesses going forward that there'll be a risk that boards will just be replaced. People that come up through the ranks and they've got financial backgrounds or operational backgrounds, that boards are just going to be replaced by a group of technical guys that can just flood this company with AI. Do you think there's a risk of that could happen?
I do not. I'm
Right.
sure there are people who fantasize about that,
Right.
but I absolutely do not believe that will ever be possible. Number one, this is hard to imagine, but all the major general purpose AI systems, so let's think of ChatGPT, Meta, Mistral, the entire internet has been absorbed as training data.
Mm.
And we're now running out of new data, and we're having to train with synthetic data. Now, when you run out of data, your AI model is going to begin hallucinating. It's going to exhibit emergent behavior. you're always going to have human oversight. Now, I am a skeptic about artificial general intelligence, and I am a skeptic about artificial superintelligence. And there definitely are people who believe in it. Um, Stock exchange rules are still geared towards human oversight. So if you can pull up NASDAQ rules, New York Stock Exchange rules, for example, and our legal and regulatory system, we still assign liability to humans and not AI agents. This is actually one of the topics I'm going to be covering at the Internet Security Congress. You know, the law of agency. We don't have a theory of liability yet that can say this AI agent caused harm. This AI agent has to pay. No, it's going to be a human being that exercises oversight over that AI agent. So I don't believe the board can be replaced.
And going back to some of the policies that you've already mentioned and the liabilities. So if we do have cases of AI agents going rogue and creating all kind of havoc and damaging company reputation or even costing, making decisions that cost money, is there liability directly attributable to directors and boards at the moment? Is that
Well,
make the link?
this, of course, depends on what jurisdiction you live in. In the United States, it's actually very difficult for a board member to actually face liability.
Hmm.
But there are lawsuits all the time. I think the most insightful example would be in the area of cybersecurity, where there's some major data breach. The data breach leads to millions or billions of dollars in losses. The shareholders initiate a derivative lawsuit against the board of directors, attempting to hold them personally liable. The Securities and Exchange Commission and Department of Justice initiate investigations and attempt to hold individual board members and C-suite executives individually liable criminally and civilly. And this is an evolving area of law. But I would like to note that so even cases that are hundreds of years old in contract law, tort law, um, can still be a theory of liability even when you don't have an AI specific law. Now, something we are seeing that's very interesting, we're starting to see laws that say, hey, if you develop AI, it must comply with the NIST AI risk management framework, and you need to demonstrate good faith efforts to comply with that framework. ISO 42001 has not yet been formally adopted as a standard that demonstrates compliance with the EU AI Act, but I actually believe that one day will happen. I think it's an excellent standard. Um, ge- Generative AI, uh, well, agentic AI, I think, is in some ways fundamentally different from generative AI. And the legal system has not caught up with generative AI, and we're going to have another evolution in agentic AI. And certainly in the United States and Canada, that's going to start in the court system. And eventually, if you have a lot of cases, that will make its way into legislatures. I hope I've addressed the question.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yes.
So we're almost coming to the end of our session here. Aside from people exploring your course, which will be available on the GGA's website, what would be your first step if people are worried about this and want to take a first step towards making sure that AI is managed ethically and responsibly within an organization? What would your first step be?
Uh, I would recommend become as familiar as you can with the technology and start using it.
Right.
And then you will start understanding that you're exposing your private data, and how do you use the tools in the widely available models to protect your data. And you'll go on that journey. If you are a board member right now, you could become or a CEO or a CIO, you could become the executive sponsor of an AI governance initiative. You could start a pilot program on AI. And indeed, I would recommend start with a very small AI project. You could embark on an AI literacy program in your organization. So take small steps. That would be my recommendation.
Wonderful. Thank you, John, and thank you, James. And look, on behalf of the Good Governance Academy, I wanted to extend a sincere thanks to you both and the Bonar Institute for sharing your insights and for sharing this program with us, the Digital Responsible AI program. It's such a vital area for boards and executives, ensuring that artificial intelligence is not only powerful, but responsible, ethical, and aligned with the values of good governance. So as we've heard today, the decisions leaders make about AI will not only shape their organizations, but society in general. So it's clear that programs like this are critical in guiding leaders through the opportunities and the risks. A quick reminder. Oh, sorry.
And thank you to the Good Governance Academy for this opportunity. And thank you again for evaluating our program and providing very useful feedback.
It's been a pleasure.
Very much
Just a quick reminder, sorry, that the recording of today's showcase will be on the YouTube channel, and we'll share a summary of it on our LinkedIn page. So please be sure to follow us there to stay updated. You'll also find links to the Bonar Institute website, to the course, and also the presentation that we shared today. That will also be on the Good Governance Academy's website. And there were a few questions that we didn't get to, more general AI questions, so we'll post answers to those today. Thank you again for joining us. We thank you for your continued support of the Academy, and we look forward to welcoming you to the next event. So until then, stay engaged and keep championing good governance. Thank you again, John and James.
Thank you. Bye-bye.